All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Konveyor community meeting for February 9th, 2023. Before we get started, please remember our code of conduct. So scrolling down, please put your names in the attendees list if you are here. Recurring topics, welcome new members, attendees. I don't remember if we had Justin here last community meeting, but he's joining from the UX team. And a few other folks, so welcome. We'll just get right in the demos. We got a lot to cover today, so we'll try to fit this all in within the 45 minutes. We've got Merrick up first for CLI export and import. Merrick, would you like to take over?
Yeah, thanks. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, so this is going to be the demo of Teckle CLI import-export tool, which actually got capabilities to export also Teckle 2. It lives under Teckle 2 Hub repository, and there is the new scenario which describes exporting and importing to Teckle 2. It's slightly new from the Teckle 1.2, so it adds buckets data, identities, proxies, and these new objects which exist in the Teckle 2. I'm going to show it on two instances. First one is locally running Minikube with a Teckle. This is this one, which contains the relevant data or some sample data, and the empty instance of Teckle, which is running somewhere on OpenShift. Let's say consider it as kind of demo production or something like that. So let me switch to command line. I have a cloned repository of Teckle 2 Hub, and I'm in the tool directory. So first I needed to take the config file and create the two config files for the local Minikube Teckle, and then from the kind of production demo Minikube. Let me show what's inside. So it's very clear endpoints and credentials, which are same from the previous versions. The new thing there is the encryption passphrase, since identities which can contain passwords, certificates, and so on are encrypted during the export and decrypted during the import. So the passphrase needs to be same for the export system as for the destination for the import. Let me start the import. So what we are going to do is to run a Teckle export from Teckle locally running, which is the Minikube. It should be quite fast, so since it's locally. Let me see what's there. So we have Teckle data, which contains a bunch of the JSON files and some of the tar.gz archives with the buckets data. I will start the import. It looked to take a little bit more time, but it's because the distance or sloping to the destination cluster, which is provided to me. Import is similar as before. It first checks objects for possible collisions on the destination Teckle installation, and now it will take some time to upload various resources type. Meanwhile, I would show what is inside the Teckle data. So there is the bunch of JSON files, same as Teckle 1.2. Plus, for example, for identities, there are fields which are encrypted, which is password here, key, and so on. Also in buckets directory, there are data for the applications, actually, application with bucket. I have a sample data only in application ID 82, which contains some wind-up report. Let me switch back to see the progress of the import. It's still running. By the way, if it would fail, in the progress, or there was some mess in the destination cluster, there is possible to run Teckle clean all, which would clean all data in the Teckle. But now it looks okay. So we got all the JSON files in and also uploaded the archive in. Let me look back to the browser. So we can see that the devil's the minikube, it's still the same, but the destination tackle was populated with the sample data. We can also look to the credentials that everything is there. I think that's pretty much it. For more information, please look to the Tackle2 Hub repository, and there is quite a long readme which should help to understand. Also, I'm happy to provide support on Konveyor Slack. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you, Merrick. Any questions for Merrick? Okay, awesome. Great demo, Merrick. Thank you. Up next, we've got Ian, who's going to demo Migration Waves progress.
Hey, guys. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on where we're at with the Migration Wave stuff and how we can maybe leverage some of this work on other areas of the app. So the Migration Waves, it does have a requirement to show a compound expandable table. And with Patternfly kind of deprecating the table that we're currently using in the Tackle2 UI or Konveyor UI, we decided to make an effort to move towards the composable table architecture. So this will give us the benefit of long-term support versus the legacy table. And also there are quite a few more, quite a bit more customization options for how we render individual rows and cells in the composable table architecture. So this will come in handy when we're needing to render things like compact tables with custom styles inside the composable table. So for the Migration Waves use case specifically, we do have to build that the Migration Waves table with the compound expandable piece. And rather than just building a one-off table that we're using in the Migration Waves use case, been able to build a composable app table component that can be reused and plugged in anywhere throughout the app. So it'll make use of our existing bulk toolbar, filter toolbar, and other table functionality we have already baked into our tables. So it should be as simple as just swapping in this new reusable component. This component will also allow for a dynamic list of expandable content items that can be rendered. So that'll just make it that much more flexible. And like I said, this component will be able to be extended to other areas of the app. Like we discussed in the UXD meeting previously, that the applications table does have a busy UI for displaying tags. So this could be a potential use case for making that a cleaner experience. And I will just show the UI progress, even though it's not fully complete. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right. So yeah, this is the Migration Waves table view. And as you can see, there are two areas where we can expand this table. This table row has cells that can be expanded to show their content nested inside the cell. And yep, that's all working. So this will be an option we can move forward with for things like the busy UI, potentially for applications with tags that yeah, that'll be a conversation for another day. But yeah, just wanted to show the progress for the UI this stage. That's all I had.
Awesome. Thank you, Ian.
Sure.
Any questions? Okay. Moving right along, David, we've got UI for running any add-on demo. Like, share your screen.
I want to see if my mic actually works first.
Yeah. I can hear you.
Venture into sharing my screen. Okay, so share. So over the past, wow, it's been a couple of months. I've been working with Ian and Mike to try and get up to speed on doing UI work, to try and flesh out this idea of a specific tab that's meant for making it so any add-on can be run through the UI. So the basic idea is that we want to have a story for if you have an add-on, or maybe you're a developer writing an add-on, that we want a way through the UI for you to be able to actually execute that. So right now this looks pretty familiar, and there's nothing really special going on. What happens though is if I go and I add an additional add-on, you'll see I now have a new tab for add-ons. And so I can select in here and there's some view. And the cool thing that I can do now is I can run this.
Hey, David, any chance you could just zoom in a little bit, if you don't mind? Is that possible? It's a little small. One more. Yeah. Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Way better. Thank you.
Sorry. So now I can select the add-on that I added, in this case, the test generator that I've also been working on. I need to double check this Pathfinder application and make sure it's looking at what before I run this. Okay. So the way test generator works is it runs against a, it actually makes changes to that source code repository. So that's why I need to make sure. So I can select now the test gen add-on, and we get some data. So here we have like a YAML editor, and the way this works is we turn that YAML into JSON and pass that directly to the add-on, and now I can run it. And you can see in the UI, when you're in the application inventory for add-ons, you can see the existing tasks they're running. This may or may not pass. I'm still working through issues, but this is the main gist. There's no way for me to like cancel this task or anything like that. But you can see that we have all the applications. We have the ability to view tasks and the add-on that's associated with them. And yeah, that is it. Currently, this is living in the feature add-on branch of Tackle2 UI, and I think further discussion will be had about whether or not it makes it into the main line.
This is awesome.
That's all I have.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
amazing.
What does this look like with TCA or test generator, David?
The idea is you just add, as soon as the add-on exists, as soon as the hub says that there are add-ons that aren't wind up, then it will show this tab, and you can select from that drop-down list the add-on. Did I get that right? Like you can select any add-on that is available through the hub, and then you can tell it what data you want to pass to it, and then it'll just execute that task.
Very cool.
So maybe it will be interesting for this to be an advanced option that administrators can enable or disable. I don't imagine customers being happy about this stuff happening in a production cluster, but it could be interesting to make it configurable for that use case of developers or test environments or things like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, I could see that. I think some of the conversation that we have had is just having an answer for how to run an add-on that hasn't been specifically added to the UI. I think it's nice.
Cool. Any other questions for David? Thank you. All right. That finishes the demos and roadmap section. We have enhancements highlights. Ramon, you've got the custom migration targets. I can share my screen if you want, or you can. It's up to you.
I will share my screen.
All right. Let me stop it. Sorry.
Yeah, I prepared a presentation for this thing.
Great.
So this is the first feature presentation / discussion that we've had. So let's see how this works. Just 1 second. Can you see the presentation now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so let's discuss this custom migration targets enhancement. I put a link to the enhancement itself in the enhancements repository in the document for today. First of all, I want to provide a little bit of background to understand why something like this might be needed in the field. And well, one of the main reasons is the typical structure that teams have for these large-scale modernization migration projects. So when we're dealing with hundreds or even thousands of applications, it's pretty common to structure teams with a team of I called it here a steering team or adoption leads, which are the technical leads, the architects, and people from mainly the customer itself, if they're relying on a third-party consulting firm or vendor or something like that. It's a mixture between technical leads and project managers, which are responsible for the migration initiative or the modernization initiative within the organization. And then we have a series of migration teams, which are typically provided by third-party factories. The thing with these factories is usually to reduce costs. Customers look for the cheapest out there. So they look for people that have laser focus skills, which are usually related to the changes required in the application source code to adapt these applications to run on the target platform. So with that being said, usually these migration leads, the steering team, the adoption team, puts together a series of tooling or tools or things that need to be done. And one key aspect of that is making sure that these tools can be leveraged by the migration teams with the least friction possible. So based on that spirit, we got reports from the field, from a series of projects that have been structured with this, that in the context of application analysis, it was a little bit cumbersome to have to upload rules on each execution of an analysis, because it required first explaining what a rule is for these migration factories, which took time. It required downloading the rules, having them stored in a place, making sure that these migration teams could have access to that place, show them how to download and associate the rules to the analysis context. So it took time, it was cumbersome, it was making things more difficult for these steering teams leading these migration initiatives on some customers out there. So based on that feedback, and well, there's yet another piece of feedback that we got, is that in that structure, one thing that would be really good would be for to allow steering teams to nurture a certain rules repository and allow the migration teams to consume rules coming from those repositories in the most transparent way possible. Not forcing the migration teams to learn what a rule is and having to check out the rules and upload them. Make the consumption as easy, as simple as possible. So migration teams find the terminate challenge, something that needs to be sorted out. The steering team creates a series of rules for that, and then enhances the rule repository, and then the migration team can pick it up from there. So based on these two requirements, the UI, the UX that we have around analysis being a little bit cumbersome, and the need to centralize somehow the management of rules, we came out with the idea of custom migration targets. So the solution for basically making the lives of these migration teams or factories easier will be to add something that we call a custom target that will encapsulate the custom rules, and then would allow the migrator to just have something pretty similar to what they already have in the set targets in the target definition screen from the analysis wizard. So it's just a matter of having an additional card that provides this custom migration target that they just can select, and that will be it. Underneath, there will be a series of custom rules associated to that custom migration target, but the migrator wouldn't have to understand that, to have any kind of consciousness of something like this happening, behind the curtains. This is especially important because in most large-scale migration projects, Usually, large organizations use custom or corporate architectures, and sometimes the journey for an application to be deployed on the cloud is just a matter of migrating from custom framework or architecture A to custom framework or architecture B. B being the one that is cloud native or cloud friendly. So to abstract away, again, these migration teams from the complexity of having to figure out, yeah, I need custom rules for this scenario, and I don't need these and I don't need them for this other scenario. We thought this would be a good idea. Just another card that appears on the list of already available cards that come out of the box with the tool. The only difference for the user will be that we will have a small label saying, hey, this is a custom migration target, that nothing special to be done about that. Regarding how to create and manage the migration targets, the idea is to add an additional menu entry on the administration perspective that we have in Konveyor or in Tackle formerly. And from there, you will be able to create and manage and arrange how these custom targets appear in the analysis wizard. And talking about the migration target itself, well, it's to understand what a migration target is, or what are the components that that make a custom migration target. Basically, we will have a name, we'll have an optional description, an associated image to display an icon in the same fashion that we have with the other migration targets that come out of the box with the tool. And then we will associate a series of custom rules. Those rules could be uploaded manually, which is something that has been done in the past with the custom migration, with the custom rules configuration for the analysis. It will work exactly the same. You upload a series of files, they are validated, and then they get associated to a custom migration target. Nothing fancy about this. You need to understand that this will mean that the rules will remain static. So whatever you upload remains static and remains associated to the custom migration target. But we are adding an additional option, which will be retrieving the rules associated to a migration target from a repository, meaning that this will satisfy this requirement of having this central knowledge base in the shape of rules repositories. So you will point at certain migration target to a repository, and each time an analysis is executed in which this custom migration target is selected, the system will retrieve the repository and execute the rules, execute the analysis, adding the rules to the context of the analysis itself. Finally, regarding ordering, we also thought about a drag and drop system to determine the order in which the cards are displayed on the analysis wizard. So it will be possible to rearrange the order of the already existing cards, but also the custom cards, to define what is the most convenient way of showing these custom targets to the end user, to the migrator. And we also added some sort of bonus track to this thing, which is the possibility of, since we have this repository association to custom migration target, what about being able to also associate repositories when you are configuring custom rules for an analysis? So it's basically the same that we explained before. So the association of custom rules when you are configuring an analysis is not going to go away. It's just that we're making it easier when you are doing that at scale. But if you still want to associate rules to a certain analysis, you can do that manually as usual, or also associate a repository to the analysis. And that's it. Any questions? Okay, cool.
Thank you, Ramon. Great presentation. Any questions for Ramon before we move on? Okay, thank you. I had a topic here, but I was hoping to have the enhancement link up before the meeting. I promise it'll be up today. I just wanted to call out that when I do submit, I've been working with a few folks in the community for the past really like week and a half, trying to identify the gaps that we have today in integration testing and CI. So I know there's an upstream project board, and I see David's got a discussion topic for this later, but I'm really interested in trying to build upon the work that Shavita and Mayan have done with their API tests repository, as well as the proof of concept work that Merrick had started doing API testing. So I'm mainly looking for feedback in kind of two realms when I do submit this later today. The first is how do we target UI testing? Because that's a little outside my wheelhouse. I've been kind of focusing more on testing at the API level and integration testing. And then second, essentially feedback on the decisions that I've talked to a few folks and try to get a consensus as to what would be right for the community in terms of how we develop this. So I'm kind of looking for feedback in those two realms. And then anyone that's interested in collaborating, please reach out. My plan was to kind of start helping to write these tests because I figured it'd help me on board of the project. So I already reached out to a few people, and I know that Shavita and Mayan had expressed some interest in collaborating as well. So I just want to call that out. I'll send it out in Slack as well. But if folks could provide some feedback and reviews, that'd be much appreciated. Okay, moving on, unless there's any questions on that. I did see something. Oh, yep. Just a comment from David. Ramon, looks like you're up next as well. We've got canonical entities repository discussion.
Yep. Okay. So I don't see anyone from IBM Research today. So this is something we've been thinking for a while, and since TCA is able to identify entities, canonical entities as they call them, based on natural language descriptions of things. Basically, it's technologies. You say you write was, and then TCA is able to trace it down to, hey, you're talking about WebSphere application server, and this is the canonical name for that. We are exploring the possibility of add-ons being able to automatically tag applications. But what we wouldn't like to happen is that we have different add-ons that tag the applications on the inventory using different terms for the same thing. So that's why we came up with the idea of having some sort of canonical entities repository, database, whatever you want to call it, something that is unified across the whole community, that is recognized as being the source of truth for entity names, for tags in the end. So we have some stuff, for example, some technologies that Windup is able to identify. We will be adding them shortly as the information that we use to seed our tackle first now Konveyor instances. But that's a short-term goal/wing. But for the future, I think we need to start thinking about how to structure this. And Jeff, I think you also had some insight or opinion related to this. I don't want to be the only one talking about this. Sorry for putting you on the spotlight.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at something. What can you set me up again?
Yeah, regarding the canonical entities repository, I think you also had something to say about that and how beneficial it will be.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's really important there is that we always want to support, tags and tag types, like custom tags and tag types and so forth. And the value that they bring is always going to be like, it's always going to, add value. But I think in terms of, if we're going to have logic that keys off of tags, if we want to maximize the value of tags and tag types, I think having a canonical set of those is going to be critical, especially when you consider, we may want to have add-ons that take that augmented knowledge about the application and use those tags to help produce things, add value. So I think that having a well-known published set of those will again just kind of maximize what we get out of tags, especially at the programmatic level.
And to add to that with a concrete example, one of the things that we are thinking is about making the assessment module a little bit smarter. So wouldn't it be nice if it would be able to understand how the tags that are available in an application and be able to ask some questions related to those exact tags instead of being completely generic about everything? You cannot do that if we're not talking if we're not working with a canonical set of entities. So
Yeah, it's a good
my
example.
point here is I wanted to bring the topic to the table and see if anyone will find any problem about this canonical thingy, and see how we can move forward with this.
I agree that it's something that we absolutely need. Like when you talk about test generator is only useful for a specific subset of potential applications that would be in inventory. And if we ever want the ability to say, hey, this would be a good candidate for running test generator against, like you need to have a canonical set such that we can say, hey, this is of the particular subset that test generator would be good for. So having like a clearly defined list of, would allow us to make intelligent decisions about what should run and what shouldn't run.
I think
Yep.
the place to start here is to think of a place to document this and just seed it with what we, as a straw man of what we think those tag types and tags will be, and then just try to get just try to get some discussion over it and buy-in.
Yeah, makes sense. One thing that we said, I don't remember if it was an 1.6 add-on meeting in which we had the IBM folks in there. One thing we could potentially do is get what TCA has right now, try to merge it with what we have in Windup, and use that as a starting point.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. There's one thing to take into account, and I think it was Pranav or Fabian who brought this into our attention, is that custom rules will be, or rules in general, will be able to provide technology tags. So when users are developing custom, so there's two things in there. If we are developing rules that come out of the box with the tool, we should be especially careful about how we tag things and make sure that we are aligned with the tags that are available in the canonical set. And on the other hand, there's the possibility of users having custom rules and tagging things with custom tags and tag types, which shouldn't be that much of a problem, because we already said that that we're going to support that. That's part of the core functionality of this thing. But regarding the stuff that comes out of the box, we need to be super careful about not tagging stuff that in a way that is not aligned with the canonical set. David, you're writing something. Since we are recording, maybe you can.
So yeah, one idea that I think this definitely warrants like further on discussion. So this is just an idea that came to me. My understanding now is that the set that is of tags and tag types currently available is baked into our application. Maybe it's in the operator, I'm not sure. But I was wondering if it were possible to set these tags and tag types as like a config map that's provided to the operator to the hub, then we may be able to separate this canonical list into some other entity such that we can have PRs against this canonical list, and then that list is just automatically included.
That's part of the discussion, I think, because there could be add-ons that will need to be seeded somehow with that as well. We'll need to consume that as well. And some of these add-ons, so for example, TCA is an add-on that is a grabber of a CLI tool, and the CLI tool has its own database. So one of the challenges that I think we need to face is how can we publish this information in a way that can be consumed by other external entities, which will then be grabbed by add-ons. What I'm trying to say is that we shouldn't assume that having this information available in the hub should be enough for the add-ons, because if the add-on doesn't have knowledge about how something is called, how can we expect it to be able to tag using the hub API? Jeff, you were saying something.
No, I'll say, and that's a great conversation to have, and whether it's a config map or a new type of CR or whatever it is, it would be really good if that could be managed that way.
But wouldn't that be an implementation detail of the hub itself? So the hub will have this way of consuming the information, but where is the actual information stored? Do we want it to be part of the hub repository? Should it have its own dedicated repository? I guess that's yet another conversation to be had.
Yeah, I think I'm less concerned about where. I mean, but definitely, I mean, it is an implementation detail, but yeah, I mean, so we just talk about all this stuff and sort it out. It shouldn't be hard.
Hey guys, I just want to do a quick time check. We're kind of getting close to time. I want to make sure we left enough time for David. Is there anything that we need to discuss further here? Could we maybe take some of this offline?
I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you, Ramon. Good conversation. All right, David, you got 7 minutes. What you got for us?
All right. Is my audio working? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. So what I wanted to talk about is we've been putting a lot of effort, and actually maybe more talking than effort, but there's been a lot of talk about release engineering and CI and what we're doing going forward. And I think that we've started the train moving, but so I just wanted to point a few things out to people and make it so we could, if you are interested, you can follow along. If you're not, you can ignore me. So the first thing is that we have a Konveyor CI and release engineering project board. It could use some work, but we have a project board, and you can see the things that are currently to do and in progress, and you can see it in multiple ways, whatever way you prefer looking at it. So we have a couple of things that are in flight, and things that a big one that's coming is this workflow to create a release. So we previously had conversations about how we were going to enforce like what the commit style was going to be. And so we decided that PR titles would be labeled a certain way. And based on that, we can do things with semantic versioning and automated releases. So the next thing that's going to happen is now that we have PR title verification, the next thing is to create a workflow in a single project, in this case the hub, that is able to create a release based on the commit history since the last tag. That brings us into, there's a CI and release engineering team. And if you're interested in joining the team, you can reach out and I can add you to that team, and that'll give you some visibility as I'm able to tag the CI release engineering team on pull requests and issues and things like that. So that is something, if you're interested in that, let me know and I will add you to that team. So the big thing that we've been pushing as part of this automated release effort is versioning and branching of the Konveyor projects. We started with just the PR process. And in this, we said, hey, when you submit PRs, they're going to be prepended with this breaking change emoji, and that was the rule. So once we did that, then we implemented an action that we could put against repos to enforce that standard. So we have that in place in the hub, and I think the UI I added yesterday did PR title enforcement. The next step is to talk about how we're going to do releases. So I've made updates to this release tools versioning document. Oh, before I go further, I wanted to say, like, this versioning document is meant to cover the Konveyor organization. So it's meant to be a baseline that you can include in your versioning document for your repo. So you take, actually just yesterday, the Tackle 2 UI, I added the versioning document there and said, this our versioning scheme follows this document unless otherwise stated below. And right now there's no deviation mentioned below. So the idea is that we can include it and we can have a single source of truth for like the overarching view of how we're going to do release and branching and stuff. So the big change that this pull request right here, I included it as a link in the document, and I want feedback. It talks about how, I think it would be easier if I review it. It talks a little bit about how we're using semantic versioning. The big one is we're talking about having two types of branches, the main branch and a release XY, which designates the minor version for release candidates. So these branches would be the stable branches on which releases would be cut. It also talks about how releases are going to happen, how releases cut from the main branch are going to be suffixed with an alpha-n, alpha being like, hey, this is not a production-worthy release. This is just a release we're cutting so people can see it and people can grab it, and we can have our automation tools built around it. When we cut releases from the release XY branch, then we're going to use the semantic versioning scheme, and a lot of that depends on you properly labeling your PRs, like stated at the bottom. But that's all I have. I wanted people to see that document, see that there is a PR, and if you have opinions, especially strong ones, I'd like to hear them. So that's all I have. And I may or may not have gotten ChatGPT's help in writing that document.
Well done. Thank you, David. Any questions for David before we end the call? Right on time. That's fantastic. Thank you, everyone. It was a lot of material for 45 minutes. Anything else before we close the call? Okay, let me stop the recording.